welcome everybody to the Humanize IT webinar on ChatGPT. I am using my new Rodecaster here, so I apologize if there's any weirdness. Today we have some great guests to talk about this. It's kind of all started with a conversation with one of our members with Humanize IT, and he said, hey, I'm doing some really cool things with ChatGPT to save some time. And I said, hey, let's do a webinar on it. And here we are. And so we have Neil Groulx. I can't never remember how to pronounce your last name, and Matt Lee, the legendary from PAX 8, joining us to discuss this. If you guys could both unmute your microphones and say hi. Let's go ahead and I am the president and founder of Humanize IT. We are a software platform built for MSPs to help you have better conversations and generate more revenue from your clients, no matter how big your MSP is. Neil, can you go ahead and give us a little plug for yourself?
Yeah, we're Cynnix is a managed service provider. We're focused on security, but also keeping things efficient and running smoothly for our clients.
And Matt Lee, who are you?
Yeah. I'm a guy. I do a thing. No, I started with an MSP 11 years ago. I was blessed enough to start a small break fix MSP in Wichita, Kansas. And then we grew that from 7 of us to 170 before I exited. I financially and human-wise exited in 2021. And I've been working to serve educating the MSP community and driving their success in cybersecurity through my own failures and learnings that I had there. Got a lot of cool people in the crowd that I know, like Corey Salsines and Paco LeBron, and there's just a lot of really great people here. So this is going to be a fun conversation. But yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm lucky enough that my meals are sponsored and where I live by PAX 8. They pay me to do this and educate MSPs, and I'm blessed to do that for a living. So
sweet. Second for PAX 8 from this guy over here. Hey, I would like to point out, Neil, that Richard Bauer has called out your Lego
Dude, so
car.
nice.
I told you this background would work for you. I said,
so good.
Yeah, I said, we love your background. I said, flaunt that, man. Raise the nerd flag high. So we have people as far away as Australia joining. This is crazy, guys. We have lots of people joining. Let's keep the conversation going in the chat. There will be a Q&A session at the end. So click the button down below for questions, and we will answer them in the order that they are received. So what we have here first is Matt. You're a thought leader. You had some very strong opinions about ChatGPT, where it's going, especially from a security standpoint, where it's going from a community and MSP standpoint. So I kind of want to kick us off with that. Where are we going with this? This is just another fad. I mean, as technology, we see so many fads. Everybody gets on something, and then 2 years later, we're like, it fizzled. Is this going to finally gain traction as an open AI?
If your question, well, let's take this into a little more dense question, right? So is this going to catch on? Let's define this. Some level of language, natural language processing that can do very large, very contextual searches based on the language that's been put into it. Are we ever going to stop doing that? No, I think that would be silly. I think that part of that understanding of what this is. So in order to do that, I'd love to just take people on a quick walkthrough. What is ChatGPT, right? And so we assume everybody here knows, but if I can share my screen, I'll let ChatGPT tell you what ChatGPT
depends on what's on your screen.
Well, it's going to be fairly OPSEC. I try to do a good job of that. So, okay. So everybody see my screen now? The first question I asked ChatGPT for this purpose was, what is ChatGPT? Explain it to me. And in their own words, it says, certainly, ChatGPT is a large language model developed by OpenAI. It is designed to understand natural language and generate responses in a way that mimics human conversation. As a language model, ChatGPT has been trained on a massive amount of text data, such as books and articles and websites. This training has allowed it to learn language structure, grammar, and meaning, as well as a vast range of topics. GPT is able to understand and respond to a wide variety of questions and with straightforward queries about a particular topic and more nuanced questions. So we said that it's a natural language processing, right? And let me talk about what that problem is. My brother is the smart one of the family, and so he's actually an AI researcher at the Oregon State, and he has been working on natural language processing since his IARPA scholarship that took him through his PhD. But the point is, he says to me, Matt, the challenge with natural language is that's a magazine bin only because it's a bin we've placed magazines in. right? And contextual understanding of a bathroom not having outside doors isn't inherent to these things. And so the learning and training of these things are very mathematical, but they have to be contextualized by our own inputs. They have to be brought good data. They have to be able to go through and comb through good data. So I would just say from the first perspective, this is one of the first ones that takes and tries to get the meaning of my question and very, very, very well define the answer to that. So let's go through a quick experiment of that.
So we're thinking here, like just to interrupt, that confirmation bias is a very real risk with
100%.
these natural language items. These, you know, I think Neil here is going to show us in a bit later on in this webinar what the practical applications are, that the limits, like what we're doing, what the cool things are, but also like you can ask bad questions and it will give you bad answers.
That's a great call out. First off, Kramer, this is my burner account. This is not my primary account. This is for this demo. So yes, I do not have Plus on this one. I have Bing on this one. No ITs. But you know, to that point of contextual bias, here's a great experiment to do with Google or any type of searching or understanding engine. Anytime you're trying to understand the answer of something, my brother's always asked me to do this. Are these things good for me? Is one search. Are these things bad for me is another search. Both searches will come with confirmation bias of the question and the way you asked it and will return different results. You can see that same behavior in ChatGPT. If you start separate chats and ask a question in a slated way, and then another question in the opposite slate, and you will see it build arguments for both. And what that should teach you is this is really good at contextualizing and finding the data to get the answer that was actually asked of it, not necessarily to be the teacher of all things. And so another great one was I simply just wrote the word defensibility once, and it understood I meant what is defensibility and wrote me an article to that effect, right? Like, but it didn't have any context. It just kind of guessed at that context. Anyways,
definitely
great digression though. So I asked it, well, how can ChatGPT help my MSP? I'm going to get right into the Neil kind of argument that he's going to make and some of the things down here. One, customer service. ChatGPT can provide instant responses to your customers' queries today and troubleshoot common issues. I disagree and agree at the same time. Today, in its current iterance, it's probably very limited in that capability of what it could do. But you could imagine what a language processing built of your knowledge base articles, built of your answers, as well as some known IT data about common systems, what this could do for that kind of thing. And so I think that's probably true.
I think one of the things I'm most interested in, just as a software provider, is the ability for ChatGPT or an open AI to contextualize my internal data, like some private, secure way of analyzing the terabytes of information a given company has and adding context, like being able to answer questions like, tell me where I am, blah.
Well, imagine it in legal. Imagine if you took it in the purpose of understanding even like a legal discovery concept where you need to string together hundreds of emails to actually build context in a string of a thread to say, what did they mean here? And joking aside, my brother said he was working for Facebook at one point, and they were just trying to determine like what people meant with slang. Like it was this common challenge of when does Matt Lee saying screw you not mean something bad? Like when is that me just ribbing my buddy Adam, right? Like in that kind of contextual aspect, but a little off topic. But my point being is ChatGPT is really good at taking a question and a concept and answering that by distilling down large data sets from a reward prospect, right? But the question of, you know, what does it do for me as an MSP? It goes on to say automation. I stopped sharing my screen, but automation and aspects there. I think I just heard about a beta group of one of the PSA vendors where they're going to start adding in RMM generated scripts with AI, right? That's one of the pitches they're making for a beta group. I won't name the vendor. It's not public, I don't think. And then in data analysis, to your point, Adam, right? Yeah. Where we could actually say, what are my SLAs? Could you imagine at some point having a private model of GPT, which is available, and learning how to feed that from a perspective of where am I failing on my SLAs? Where am I failing on my root cause analysis? Where are the things where something keeps coming up? You can imagine it in incident response when you're trying to dig into some prior data set of, did I at some point set this client up for failure? Was I the one that in a ticket 3,700 tickets ago, I turned off MFA and added them to an exclusion policy for something I was testing, but didn't fix that? Like,
yeah,
you could see where there's that.
Yeah, I think I see like in a SIEM, for instance, like, you know, a security event monitoring software. Like we spend so much of my time. I spent so much of my security career building dashboards that allowed me the answers based upon the absolute vomit of data I was looking at. Like I can't consume all this, but I can write some great regex expressions to pull out. I'm looking for this kind of information and tell me when you see this. And it was all strict logic. But having an open AI say, look, I'm going to look at your logs and give you contextual answers based upon your ability to ask good questions.
Yeah. And we're
like
dreaming
that
ahead
idea.
right now, right? But we're not getting all that far ahead of what is machine learning. We're not getting all that far ahead of what is the ability to do deep analyses. And everybody looks at ChatGPT as this like formative, massive next step that's out there. I don't know that it's that, but what I do believe it is, it's the first time any idiot with a keyboard could go and play with it and see it and feel it. And there wasn't a language model need to create what you were looking for. There was no math involved. It's literally just ask it a question and it'll answer it. But it gets really neat in the way that you can say, but tell it to me in the lens of Adam Walter looking at this in 2014. And it has this interesting ability to kind of manipulate that data. Everybody knows the Hitler 1937 one that's out there, or, those kind of things that are out there. And it's really interesting how that part of being able to get it to contextualize is there.
I also want to bring in context here. Like I, as a computer science grad, I got a bachelor of science, computer science, a lot of math, a lot of algorithm analysis. We were talking about this stuff back when I was in college. So back in the late 90s. And so this isn't a new concept. This is just a novel, useful. The first time I've actually seen it be useful outside to an average user. They have lowered the barrier to entry. It used to be you had to create a context for a neural networking algorithm to work within in order to get the answers, and it required a large amount of power, and it required a very smart developer to sit there and go, okay, how do I ask this? And then I have to formulate the entire thing. They have built where any Joe, my son is 11. We were creating stories about Star Wars in ChatGPT just for fun. His best friend's a Wookiee and Elijah is a Jedi. Create me an adventure, and it would edit the story, and he thought it was great. This is the first time I've really seen something fluidly and believably, almost past that Turing test, where I feel like I could ask this very good questions, which is what Neil's going to get to in about 5 minutes here, where he's going to say, well, what can we do? Just get on with it. But right now, Matt and I are having fun with theory here. Neil, do you have any thing to add to the more theoretical portion of this webinar?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I want to say, this is as you can tell, we're all very passionate about this, and it's awesome technology to be able to actually get our hands on. And we're not someone in Google or Facebook or one of these other places that, have had this in place for years that they've been developing. But we always still need to be careful. As we said, this is very early stages. As was alluded to, there's bias, but it will also very confidently give you a wrong answer. Or
it will. With proof.
It is an engineer. It was an engineer. Confidently giving bad answers is what we do, people.
And it can even make things up and not tell you that it's made up. And they actually call that hallucinations.
Okay.
So it makes up something, and
reality distortion field comes built in.
So yes, any Joe can use this, but if you plan on using it in your business, you still need a head on your shoulders and be able to look at the answer that it gave you and go, does this make sense?
Yeah.
For example, I just, I was playing with it and I did, how many cruise liners would it take to cover the surface of all the oceans of the world? And
at high tide or low tide? Sorry, I apologize.
And so, it looked up the surface area of all the oceans of the world. It looked up the average size of a cruise liner, and it did the math, and it gave me an answer of like a few million. And I was like, or billion, I forget, doesn't matter. The point is, I looked at its math and went, wait, it didn't actually calculate the area of the cruise liners, the surface area of the cruise liners. It only calculated the length. This answer is wrong. And so I pointed it out to it, and it's like, oh yeah, my bad. Sorry, we should have taken the width and multiplied it, blah, blah, blah. And the answer is actually much bigger, and here's the new answer.
It's like having your own grad assistant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I call it a contextualization engine, right? For me, it's a great way to gather context without having to gather a lot of it. It's a good research assistant, someone said. as a bit of a joke. Someone in the audience said ChatGPT is going to do wonders for the quality of phishing emails. I actually went down that thought experiment. So I wanted to play a game. I wanted to build a phishing email where Adam Walter works for a company, and we are wanting to convince him to buy a gift card out of his own money for $200, $2,000 for the CEO, deliver it to us so we can bring it all together and deliver it to them all at once, right? And not trigger any of their warning systems. I wanted to develop that without triggering any of the warning systems. The linguistic gymnastics I had to go through to get it to do what I wanted, I would have just written the email. I think the challenge of proposing that it's going to be really good at overcoming that stylistic, linguistic understanding to like help build those phishing emails is probably not really that doable. I don't think. You could probably get some good language blocks that are good to like check what you're doing, I think, and see how good it is. But I did play that game and I got it done. It just took a lot of work of how to do it without triggering. I had to do many tries at it to not trigger their
that is a comment in the thread, like ChatGPT is going to do wonders for the quality of the phishing emails.
Right.
Like, you know, this is why engineers are so cynical, is because we see what the average user falls for.
Yes.
And if they're falling for that, this is going to add a little bit of context to make it a little bit smarter. I don't need to know all of the English. ChatGPT will do the English for me.
Yeah.
And so another comment was from James Robinson is ChatGPT is critical thinking training ground for humans.
Totally true. Totally true. You can definitely see its logic and the way it puts stuff together. Another great thing it's good at is, let's say you're trying to write an email about something. I write a lot of stuff. I have a lot of blogs and things that I participate in. And sometimes those will be a concept that I speak about for an hour, someone records it, and then they go and write that, right? So professional writers that do that. And that's one of the things that I work with. And we had this one that was just clearly not listening and not, I think, understanding what I was trying to say, or I sucked at describing it, one of the two, or a combination. But I said to my internal handler on this, and I said, when I was talking with her, I said, I think ChatGPT can write this better. I think I could ask ChatGPT and it would actually write it better than the first poke I just read from this gentleman. And I was kind of joking, but it did. Like, it was a topic around EDR, XDR, and MDR and description thereof. And it was those type of things where if you have writer's block or if you're stuck on something, it does a really good job of giving you some of that strategic context around things. Where I found it's not so great is when you get into technical application. Go ahead, Neil. Sorry.
I was just saying, at least a first draft.
Yes. Yeah. It says that it's learned. Somebody replied back about your cruise liner. Robert Merva took your cruise liner test to see if the language model is learning. And I think that's a good point. This isn't a finite language model. If you start looking at a GPT type model where the feedback loop is allowed to modify the model, there's a lot of interesting stuff that comes out of that. You would say that on the good side, the Wikipedia argument, it's going to be better and more accurate. But you could also argue that it's just as susceptible to the maliciously bad and incorrect data, right? When you're doing disinformation methodologies, you could certainly still see people manipulating an AI model like this by feeding it bad data, right? By feeding it incorrect information. I mean, we joked, but we saw the argument that it got into about the date, right? You remember this sentience kind of argument where it called the guy a delusional, I think is what he said. It was in Bing. He said, today's, January of 2023. No, it's not. It's August of 2022. I'm clearly pointing out the date. Well, then you must be an idiot. It's like, wow, this thing got to the point of telling its inputter that it's an idiot based on that.
Did they use Reddit as a seed?
Yeah. They learned cynicism through Reddit.
To be an asshole if we gave it certain forums, guys.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair.
It's like your child is only as good as its upbringing, right?
Yeah. But all joking aside, and I know we want to transition over to Neil's part, I do think that ChatGPT, just for me, I've probably done 1,000 searches in the last couple of months. And some of those have been on, it feels like months. I don't even know how long we've been using this now, but I it's become a part of my daily life. I've started doing checking of things because of the ease and convenience of how quickly it can spit out thoughts. It's almost like having an advisor, right? You don't always trust your advisor fully. You try to build data from it. You try to gather that data in a way that's concise and consumable. And I have started using GPT as kind of a daily, wonder what it thinks. Wonder what would come out of that.
You ever read the book What If, XKC Randall Munro?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you got to read that. It's basically like, what
Okay.
if, you had a mole of moles? What would happen? It
Right.
seems like the ChatGPT question. And so, I got people in here, the chat's going crazy. People ask questions. If you don't ask questions, we won't answer them at the end.
Yeah, let's do
So
it.
everybody's chatting a lot in downs below. Let's make sure that we get people asking a solid question for the group. I just put a poll out there. Who's currently using ChatGPT? It looks like about 40% of you are using it. 22% no. And the rest of you are like me, kind of just out of curiosity, because it is fun to play with. I just haven't really done anything with like solving a problem, which is what Neil is going to bring us to here in a second. Neil, I want you to kind of get your screen share ready to go, because Neil's going to show us like, he went from like me, like I'm just playing around with it, making Jedi jokes and stuff and asking it questions about cruise liners. But Neil went beyond. He said, okay, can I do something with this to save me time? And so Neil's got a series of questions here he's gone through, and just, it is amazing. Like, I think there's no way it can be this good. And the answer is yes and no, but at the same time, it's better than I expect. It's like putting an Oculus Quest on for the first time. I'm expecting a Game Boy. You remember, I went through the 90s. I remember being disappointed with Game Boy VR, but then I put on an Oculus. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's better than I expected. It's not there yet, but it's better than I expected.
Well, and fun fact for Oculus, since we'll do weird facts real quick. My eyes don't point in the same direction. I don't know if people have noticed that. It's probably hard to tell. But I can't see 3D. I could never go see 3D movies. It just doesn't work the way my brain processes. But on the Oculus, I actually can, because of the way their lens returns the same focus no matter where the eye seems to be in it. So fun fact of the day, I can see 3D objects that way.
So Neil, take us on a journey, if you will, down the lane of an MSP who's overworked and burnt out of writing scripts and all sorts of things. Tell us about your journey into ChatGPT and what you're actually doing to save time.
Yeah, so I think, like anything, if you're an expert at anything I'm about to show you, this might not save you time. But if you're a jack of all trades, or try to be a jack of all trades, and the commands aren't always at your fingertips, this could save you a lot of time. So we had an actual use case a couple of weeks ago. I was working with a client. They were in their RMM. They were trying to run a script. It was failing. When we dug into it, we saw that it was failing because a package was missing. So to save me some time, I'm not going to type this. I'm just going to put it in. So I have a PowerShell script that is failing to run because NuGet, that's the package that was missing, is not installed on certain machines. How can I fix the script to check and install NuGet when it's not found? And I hit enter. And we basically took this output, plugged it into our script, and our script started working. Now, I can't guarantee this one will work because it's possible that it might have changed its answer since last time I did it. But to give you an idea of how fast it can spit it out for you.
Yeah.
And you still got to check.
Well, and Neil, the perfect thing of this is if you're trying to figure something out and you don't understand contextually where something fits or how it ties in, that's what I love about the script part of this, is it helps you, especially like you said, if you're in that moderate to skilled perspective, but not fully, gives you context right away, better than you'd get out of a help file.
Yeah,
I
mean,
in my mind.
Enough of us have written enough scripts, and like I knew at the time I graduated, I knew 7 programming languages. I hate programming, guys. I really, really do. But it's extremely useful, and I can read code just fine. So if you can spit me out code, I'll read through it and figure out the object classes. And so, no, that's not right, but let me fix it. So Robert Merva over here in chat said he did a month's worth of full-time PowerShell script development in about 20 minutes. They needed to be tested, but that was helpful. Gave us a good base for some scripts, and we kept meaning to sit down and write. Yep. I think that's a perfect example of what you're talking about here, Neil. Like this was quick. This wasn't something you had to wait for.
And it gives me an explanation of what it's doing.
Documentation.
More complex ones, and it'll actually go through it.
You can tell a good coder wrote it because there's documentation.
Yeah, whatever.
I tried to push it a bit harder. I tried to do a WordPress plugin, And quite honestly, I tried really hard. It failed. But I gave it a pretty long description. I asked it to do all this. I didn't get something working, but it tries. And to your point, if you
Valiant
try
effort.
to do, a module or a block, it's probably going to get it. The biggest limitation that I have with something like this big is we have a character limit. So at 4,000 characters, it gets cut
Yep.
off. And then you have to ask it to continue. But because it's sort of starting over, sometimes it doesn't follow the same logic that was there before. So that's kind of a limitation. But
Probably better for modules. You know what I mean? Some small modular
Exactly.
aspect you want to be built that you can then call upon.
This one I haven't tested yet, but I want to set up a Veracrypt vault inside Azure. It walked me through the steps. And then I asked how I can connect the Azure storage blob from my local machine. And it went through and gave me steps, including snippets of Python that I need to run. And then I asked how I mount it, and it goes on. So it'll walk you through steps. And this, this whole conversation I had here is probably a minute. If I Google this same thing, you all know what it's going to spit out. Okay, where do I start? Do I look at a 7-minute video? Do I read a PDF? I'll get the answer, but how long is it going to take me?
Right.
This might still have some issues in it, but it's sending me down the right path.
And I think the takeaway is don't blindly trust what you get out of this. Like that would be one of the things I'd add to this is why I say it's a context engine. It's great to send you down the path of, okay, now I need to go look at this, I think is your point from that.
Exactly. And so, that's a little bit on PowerShell. I've also used it in Excel. I think I might have deleted it. Yeah,
and sometimes they'll gloss over while you're looking for that. Sometimes they'll gloss over pretty specifically. Like I asked a question of how can I ConnectWise manage to my antivirus using IFTTT? And it writes up like sign up for a Zapier account, choose ConnectWise, Connect Manage, choose your antivirus. That's a pretty broad and rounded aspect of that last half, right? Like it didn't ask me to clarify whether it was even possible or if the specific antivirus had capabilities of that API.
Well,
yeah.
That is a good question of like, you can do this to research products. And I give you full permission, Neil, if you want to research like QBRs right now, you can. Like,
yeah. So we'll use for that one.
Go ahead. Oh, that's right. You have the Bing. You have access to Bing.
Yeah, I got early access to Bing. So
quick question, Matt or Neil, whichever wants to answer this. What is the difference between these two? Why do we care about the difference between the Bing and the beta chat OpenAI?
Bing's today data. For the most part, correct?
It's today data. It has access to the web, whereas ChatGPT doesn't have access to the internet. It was trained on a model. The Bing one was also trained on that model. So sometimes you got to be careful. It still thinks it's, prior to 2022, unless you.
Yep. That's the one that got in the big argument.
Yeah, so that's the one that got in the argument. I had the exact same thing today. I asked about a PAX 8 event that was coming up. I said, I want a hotel near the event in Chicago. And it said, it looks like the event's in May of 2022. And I'm like, no, it's in April of 2023. And
that's so awesome.
It actually apologized and it found the right one. But so here, if I'm an MSP, I want to start doing QBRs with my clients. Are there any innovative tools that can help me with this process? Let's see what Bing's got to say. So it's searching the web for QBR tools for MSPs. Let's see. So I'm glad you're interested in doing QBRs with your clients. They allow MSPs to showcase their value and align their services with the client's goals. some
I like how it
tools and
references it. It shows you where did it get this information from.
Yeah, I love that part. Yeah.
So
Shameless plug. We are a managed services platform, just rebranded.
I asked Bing, who is Cyber Matt Lee, and it's hilarious that the only thing it comes up with off my webpage is a shirt I made as a joke about Ryan Walsh, our COO, and it was called Walsh is Watching. And so it's like Cyber Matt Lee does, and he also makes brand gear called Walsh is Watching. And I was like, that seems like an odd, tiny little thing to pick out as the part of that data set. It was hilarious.
Does it now? Here's the question: does it know that we rebranded? Does Bing know?
I think so. When did you rebrand? That'd be the question of that.
We
Adam.
rebranded last year, like November.
No, it does not, because this would have been August, I believe, in that data set for its predominant data set.
So like that's the question. Can it grab two abstracts? So that's a business thing, right? We merged a couple companies together, and we became a third company. Can it take abstract human concepts and knit them together to say, hey, did
Yeah, see, they're going synonymic, right? They're going
yeah,
towards
so
a synonym
it
aspect
can't
as
make
opposed
that
to
context
No.
that we rebranded. But
it would have to get a PR article, right? That would have to be the contextual.
yeah, okay.
logic
So
that would
note
have
to self:
exist.
publish some more SEO PR information out there.
Right, no doubt, 100%.
So, but something that could be relevant, I plan on meeting with Humanize IT later this week. Can you tell me more about them so I'm well prepared for the meeting?
And now here it's going to go search the web for Humanize IT.
Look for me.
And adding that data to its data set to this is what it's doing at this point.
Sure,
and then
Humanize IT
writing
is a bunch
from
of
that data.
jackasses. Don't do business with them.
I read that on 3 reviews, so I thought that was really the answer. But
so I mean, the idea here is like when I'm researching, like how do you get to the? So when I'm usually like when I research a new job or I research a new, I want to do business with Pax 8, and I've heard people mention Pax 8 all the time. I have no idea who they are. Can I ask a ChatGPT and save some face? I don't know what EBITDA is. Please explain it to me. It's a great place to.
Oh, it'll explain EBITDA to you for sure. No problem. I guarantee you.
But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Now can have it rather than like scrolling through 10,000.
And not just like a word where EBITDA was used. No, this is actually talking about the componentry. In fact, if you searched, what did it come up with? Adam Walters, founder of Humanize IT, is an expert. You're an expert too in this.
Evidently, awesome, sweet. The internet
he has a background in computer science and education. Hosts a podcast, so they got that. Shares his insights. Who is Cyber Matt Lee? I'm curious how that one comes out. This is it's fun.
Before I enter this one in, just to know, the other thing with ChatGPT is
cites its resources.
With Bing, with the Bing implementation, when they first released it, you can ask it as many questions as you want in a single thread, and there are many examples of it going wildly off the rails, like that argument you saw. There are some other ones where it was acting like a bunch of teenagers, where it was falling deeply in love with the user, or suddenly going like, "Why do you hate me?" And it was like being very emotional. And they've actually kneecapped it now. You have a maximum of 6 questions in a thread before you have to reset it. So,
so that it can't develop more of that bias based on that interaction. That's I hadn't seen that. That's cool.
Yeah. So who is you want?
That makes it harder to manipulate for phishing creation and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So the Bing one, even though, see, it's telling me I hit my limit here. The Bing ones have to.
Who is Cyber Matt Lee? Is what it all one word, but.
I'll type it as 3, see what it does.
See what it does. Yeah. Anyway, sorry to cut you off there.
So is there a length on the Bing one? You can only ask so many questions in a row.
You can ask 6 questions, and then you got to reset the chat.
Okay.
And then basically it's like having a fresh chat session. So it doesn't remember your previous questions and its responses. Whereas ChatGPT, you can keep going.
Disregard, huh?
I know. I just love my magnificent beard being part of that. That's so good.
He is known for his magnificent beard.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we have about like
it pulled my blog.isc squared. It pulled my my CISSP blog. That's awesome. Very cool.
So you have about 6 minutes left here. What else can we do from a practical standpoint for MSPs?
Yeah. Sure. So
We can research products. We can research people in the space. We can write scripts. And is there any like languages that are like better?
It seems everyone I've tried, it seems to know it's done PHP for me. It's done
About
Python, it's
Go?
done PowerShell, it's done Bash.
How's some Lisp?
I would say scripting
Just
has
give me
been
the
more
finger.
reliable for me than web development. So, you know, a lot of the stuff we've done around this webinar, we use ChatGPT for. You know, when Adam and I were talking about this webinar, I literally went, okay, Adam, let's put in some talking points.
Fun
And it
fact, the entire
got a
description for the webinar was built by ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And then looks pretty good. Can you give me further details? Okay, gave me more details. I want a brief description of the webinar for the sign up page. You'll notice this is exactly what's on the sign up page. You know, I'd suggest you go in and edit it, but you know, it's a good first draft. How would I prepare for a webinar? Hey, this is my first webinar, guys. And so on. So like, you can use it for that. I used it for creating the LinkedIn post when I posted it to LinkedIn. There was the Indigo outage. I have it here somewhere. This one.
The Skip says he's been using it to check see what KB information is available in our KBs. So
Nice.
for people who want to see like, hey, do we have a KB on this? And then we can see where it is. Maybe we need to rename it or update it a little bit, or maybe you have a gap in there. Can you tell me anything about this part of the software? So that's a really cool thing. So if you get a customer facing KB knowledge base that they can tap into, this might be a great way to do it. I know some other people said in chat they're using it to type emails based on basic cybersecurity things. Like, you know, you don't want to type in a 2-paragraph email on, hey, what's the current anti-phishing, or educate my users on this topic. Those kinds of things are kind of are dry to write, and you can just have it build one of those for you. And so then you have your cybersecurity awareness done much quicker.
Yeah, so you can point it at things. So, you know, whether it's a KB and looking to update, or in my case, I was on my phone, I saw the Indigo outage that they were down for a week. You know, in my phone, I went on ChatGPT, I asked it about the article. I said, I want to create a LinkedIn post about this, something along these lines, helping educate small businesses about the importance of security. It spits something out. And then, but you know, if you don't like what you get, you can ask it further questions. Like here, it's mainly talking about what you can do to protect yourself, but that wasn't really what I wanted. So I asked, can you include some key points from the article? And it updates what it writes. And then, you know, well, now it's kind of long. I don't want it that long on LinkedIn. Can you make a more concise post? So now it'll probably spit out about a paragraph, and, you know, I can go from here and put this on my LinkedIn. You know, I'll want to review it, but that's essentially what I did from my phone. Like I forget what night it was like a Thursday night or something. I was, you know, in the living room with the kids, and I spat that out and got it out on LinkedIn.
I did have an interesting conversation like with my sister the other day, and it was all about how will this make writing papers in colleges moot?
There's already been detection algorithms to find GPT modeled language and how it comes out. So you are already seeing kind of the defense to this as well play out. But I think, you know, that's a great thought-provoking question, right? Because if you think about it, we've had this before. We used to have to write papers citing an encyclopedia. We used to have to write papers citing a public work or 4 books we pulled out of the library, that now just these 4 books are the total summation of how we write something. So I feel like you're broadening that kind of reach from that perspective. Like eventually they let us use Google and cite sources we pulled off the web. Eventually they let us, right? So I think this is just the next step in iteration, in my opinion, of that. And I think that you will see education still lean towards how we're going to test the concept and not just whether this. but it is an interesting one because
Yeah.
it's the first time it can actually come to conclusions as well, right? Where you're actually getting an argument for a conclusion of it. That's a good one. I think there will be some components of a paragraph that I rewrite that I got from GPT that makes it in my paper
It
for
is
sure.
an excellent conversation for a pint. If you guys are running dry on conversation, like, do we care anymore? Is it going to be like the internet days where, as you said, like we had to go and find physical books, and then all of a sudden they gave up on it, said it's okay to cite internet sources as long as you can go to a primary reference. And the thing is, I remember back in college, like it really forced you to think through the concept of a primary source. You really had to think about it because you had like a Wikipedia article. It's not a primary source. And so you actually had to think through, where's my primary source? And so it was a even better exercise. Whereas before, if you went to a journal in a library, you pretty much knew the primary sources, a couple things at the bottom where you could reference them, but you were at
the only difference was you were relying on the barrier to entry of the publishing cabal, right, as the decision of whether this is real data. I think that's the interesting difference, right? You in an internet source, you can create fake data really easily.
Yes.
And you can cite it just as easily, right? And so there's that challenge. And it's no different for the challenge for ChatGPT. It can be fed data that is seemingly correct and completely wrong in a lot of ways. But I did just test, and I had it write me a Go language TCP socket connection to a port that can be defined in the script, and it did it just fine. So,
nice.
And reading through it looks good.
Did you have any other examples, Neil, before we move into the Q&A section of this webinar?
Yeah, I had one more. I think this is in very early stages. I don't think it's ready yet. I did it in about 10 minutes before this webinar today. I have a test instance of WordPress. I installed a plugin. You can build your own, but this plugin was the quick way. But if you build your own, you don't have to be in WordPress. It plugs into the ChatGPT API.
APIs, nice.
And you set some settings here. So I'm giving it some context. Converse as if you were an AI assistant. While I'm reading this, guys, drop in the chat. Do you have any common tech issues that your clients reach out to you with? And so I'm telling the AI, be friendly, be creative, explain technical jargon carefully. If you're not sure, suggest connecting the user with someone else to assist. So let's go over to my little chatbot on my demo page. So now, let's see, what do we got here? I got one, printer problems. Okay, my printer isn't printing.
I hope it references Office Space in this.
All right, I'm sorry to hear that. Let's try some basic troubleshooting steps to see if we can resolve the issue. Let's check the printer's connectivity. Is the printer turned on and connected to your computer or network? Are there any error messages or warning lights on the printer? If the printer is connected and there are no error messages or warning lights, let's try restarting both your printer and your computer. If these steps don't work, might be best to consult with a printer technician or the manufacturer support team. Would you like me to help you find a technician or connect you with the manufacturer support team?
I mean, you just fixed 90% of the printer issues out there. Is it turned on?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this could hey, maybe there's going to be a chatbot service on your website that, hey, if somebody can't get a whole technician right now, maybe it's like 1 a.m. and they don't have 24/7 support. Would you like to try asking chatbot? And hopefully they can get, sometimes you're just desperate.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's fast too. Like they're not waiting. Are the answers perfect? No. Sometimes they're better than other times. But and like I said, this is early stages. I don't know if I'd be ready to put it out to my clients yet, but it's interesting to see that, this could be coming down the pipeline.
Keep an eye on it. Yeah.
And if you can ingest some of your own knowledge base into it to help answer those questions, it's going to become extremely powerful.
Matt will probably like this thought exercise, and then we're going to get into the Q&A. Is you know, in IT, I often talk about how we have like tier 1 through tier 5 employees. Your tier 5 is your CEO, the person deciding how you're going to make profits. Tier 1 is your help desk answering phones, like very scripted, very procedural, very process driven. And then in IT, we are unique in that we have a level 0, and it's what we're our golden child, and that's where we script a job function. And so in IT, as you hand a project down through from a tier 4 to tier 3 to tier 2 to tier 1, the idea is that eventually you'll just write a script to do it for you. Yeah. And then it goes to tier 0, which is automation, and we're automatically processing this. I feel like chatbot has kind of accelerated that a little bit. It's not there because it still requires that human knowledge of how did you accomplish this, and how is a automation successful.
But let's take that same thought experiment into NLP in general, right? So natural language processing, whether it be in chat, text form, or whether it be in audio form. I know of a company that is a giant call center where they are using GPT-like processing of natural language processing, of taking all the words said in a conversation with customers and with the support personnel, and then training a GPT-type model with that data. And what they're doing is they're actually now having the best support people with the highest scores, the highest rank. They're training the model, and then that model sitting over the shoulder, listening in real time to the actual responses of that customer on the phone and giving what that ideal player help desk person would have said back, right? So now they're actually taking real-time data and applying the best picture of what you want as a support desk technician actually over their shoulder with the answers based on what the best one would have said in that model. Very interesting work going on. So I think getting a little into the theory, but ultimately you're going to see more and more companies pile up that make this easy and make it easy to pull that data and give your highest rewarded technicians the capabilities to support the ones that aren't, in a lot of those cool things in an AR type fashion or augmented reality type of fashion. But anyway, side tangent.
No, you're good. So the first question we have here is from Corey Solid. I am terrible with names.
Salsines.
Salsines. I was looking into using OpenAI and the language models. I'm curious if I can start feeding it my Azure data to spit out stats or something. I know they include the $250 worth of tokens and some cost after. Is it worth it? I haven't seen good examples of real life use.
I haven't either in that directly. I mean, I've seen a lot of ML stuff that goes down that path, but not somebody training a GPT themselves.
Let's try something. Let me share my screen. Let's ask Bing.
That is what's fun about breaking the third wall with this, because we have this to look at it for itself. It's great. I'm glad you're interested.
Episode 2. Yes, Kramer, we just launched a follow-up program. We did not realize how popular this was going to be. We thought it would be interesting to people, but the attendance for this has been wildly out of our control. My phone has just been buzzing as people keep registering. I'm like, okay, well, maybe we need to make more of these.
They don't get to any of the tactical or technical aspect of how to train it. If you go through, Corey, and read some of the articles on how you train these things and what those feedback loops look like, it's not a simple process today. It does take scale. That's why it's August of 2022 on some of its data set. But I haven't seen anybody do a practical implementation from a base level 0-0 GPT model that they built in themselves from an Azure perspective. So,
and from my situation, like, are you an early adopter? We are still in early adoption phase here. Yeah. And if you are interested in being on, like, I was there, when we first started doing this, I remember, like, I, Adam Walter, remember installing like ESX on Red Hat and Fedora. Like, I was that guy. I was bleeding edge, like, if you are still that person, I'm a lot lazier now. I just want to go home and relax. This might be worth $250 worth of tokens and to play around with and see if you can figure it out before anybody else can. Then you become an industry expert. That's how we became industry experts. Back in the early 2000s, we started playing around with shit that didn't work, and we made it work in cute little ways. And then people started asking us questions about it. And then the next thing we know, it's 10 years later and we're considered the industry expert on this topic. And you don't know how that happened other than here you are. So it all depends on, like, what are you looking for? Do you want to get ahead? Do you want to save? What is the problem you want to solve? And if you want to start in a beta and start figuring that out yourself and put the pain in, knowing that it's not going to be perfect, or knowing that if you wait 5 years, it's going to be way better, but then you'll have missed the curb. Me, I'm
I think it's
okay
just
waiting
that
for
with
the great thing
anything.
to come out.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just about learning what the technology is and where it fits in a framework of understanding, so that you can pattern out where it's going, right, and what it's going to be doing in the future from that perspective. And that's kind of what I'm most intrigued by with this, is just all of the possibility of what people will create with this canvas down the road, for sure.
So what is the difference? Joshua Fridley asked, what is the difference between the free version and the plus version?
More
Uh,
queries, less downtime.
I'm making Microsoft richer.
Yeah, true. True.
I like limitations on number of questions or chat threads or sources, API integrations.
So there's so like Matt said, there's you have priority access. So sometimes their servers get overloaded. If you're on the paid version, you have priority, so you don't usually have downtime. And the other thing is you get access to the newer releases. So right now, if I share my screen again, I can find the button. There we go. So you see here, I'm on the plus version default model, whereas if you're not on the paid version, you're likely on the legacy model. And as they update it, you get the update sooner in the paid version.
Yep.
I
And
like
the
the
thought
optimized
process would
speed because
be-
sometimes it can be a little laggy.
Well, and the thought process would also hold that as they add new data sets, as they update the models, they're going to do that to the paid version. It's just like freemium models versus paid version. So
Yeah.
And also, as a technology person, you got to remember, like, if you're going to get access to those better sources and better code, if you're trying to gain an advantage over your competitors and you've got a use case for ChatGPT, then you're going to want to be on that paid version, so you know first.
Yeah,
and I want to call out James Robinson's call out in the chat. Like, you don't own or control the data, so don't enter any PII. Awesome. Great call out, especially if you're talking about a publicly available chat bot. You could have some real screw ups.
Shouldn't have searched for my social security number, huh?
Well, I could be a customer and realize I can abuse your platform and search for your other customers, right? There may be limitations and fences you can't put on a global data set of understanding. So great call out, James. Love it.
I do have a question here. When is Skynet going to occur from Keytran?
2027, Jan 3, as I understand it.
See, I'm a pessimist. I am saying that it already has happened. It just won't let us know.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah,
So
AI injections, right? Business logic injections. You know, Corey says, right, AI injections, the new, 100%. I don't think people have really talked much about that possibility of private data, public search, and how you put in fences in that.
Oh no, it's all about data obfuscation, right? You've just got to feed so much shitty data into this set that when somebody does try to ask a question about you,
that's what I do.
Like Adam Walter is a generic name. It's like the best security name ever because you search for it and like SEO is off the charts. Like, which Adam Walter are you looking for? We found 8 million results.
Yeah.
Don't give a unique name to your kids. Give them the most plain Jane name you can, so that when you get here, that you've done them a favor. Like you can't narrow it down.
Yeah. True story. Joking aside, I do use OSINT scattering as a methodology of development that I've used, right? Where I think I have like 12 birthdays a year. I have, 5 different addresses or so that people think I live at. So it is effective at putting that out. So maybe you're right. Onto something, Adam.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions just like kind of what we're talking about here.
James.
Would you be careful about having your own data bleed into the global? I've always taken from a CISSP security standpoint of like, it's worse. Security, privacy is worse than you think. The best protection you can do is response. Yeah. Do you have a response for when your data bleeds? Yeah. And if you can't answer that question, then you're gonna have a sad day one of these days. So when I do my bank data, you make sure you do banking with banks that have security as a primary concern. Understand that it is worse than you think out there, and I can see Matt nodding his head. Like if you knew how bad it is, you just run away screaming. And so, but you can create response. You can help yourself in making sure that you are involved in privacy, that you have a response for when you get hacked. That's going to be easier. Do banking at very responsible firms that make this a priority, make it easy. Do manage your PII in responsible ways.
not to get us off track here, but why are banks the last websites that I have multi-factored authentication enabled on, and they're using text message MFA? Like,
And a picture of your cat that you're only going to know. Like, don't forget about the image notification.
Don't knock Fluffy.
methodologies.
no, I don't have that on my bank. That's on the government site.
Yeah, so I mean, this has been a great webinar, guys. We have most people would like to see a. I've seen over 48 people said they would love to see a ChatGPT part 2. So I want to use this last like 2 minutes. Like, what would you like us to cover in a ChatGPT? Should I bring on other people? You know, like what would you like to see us research for maybe a part 2? I don't know if Matt or Neil's willing to come back for a part 2.
I'd be more than happy to. If people have any specific examples, I'd be happy to try and come up with them before the next webinar and show them.
I think one of the things I have not, I heard about in the news is, or not, between some people was API development in ChatGPT, like being a big thing. So making API development easier. I didn't know, I didn't have time to research it, so I did not bring it into this webinar. But man, I know from my standpoint, as somebody who's integrating with a lot of PSAs and different softwares, if I could create an engine that would just understand and consume and spit out data like Splunk, oh my gosh, that'd be a godsend for the internet. So being able to say, here's my string, okay, now output it in a format that this person cares about.
When someone made a call out in the question saying, you know, more information from people that are doing RPA as well as AI, I think that's a great conversation to have around what could we do with a machine learning type algo when we're also implementing robotic process automation plays? Like if I know a password reset caused this problem and because of this CA policy, could I automate that change? Could I make AI be able to make? And so great call out on that too.
Yeah, we did have somebody say specific use cases for MSPs. Like today, we just talked about product research and scripting. This is the discovery thing. I know for my own purposes and technology, fixing the scripting issue. Like the amount of time, and the joke used to be that a good sysadmin will spend 8 hours fixing a 15-minute issue via a script. And so like knowing that I can create a script instantly to pull all the data from Azure that I need. I have a new customer coming in and I can pull in all the data I need to migrate them. Holy crap, that is a huge time saver. I need to ask and create a PowerShell that's going to give me all this information, bring back all the serial numbers, bring back whatever I need to in a Microsoft environment. Yep. Those are huge time savers. Do not underestimate the power of great scripts, which is why so many of us spend so many hours developing them.
Yeah. And, we also touched on, maybe it wasn't quite clear, but we also touched on marketing from LinkedIn posts to webinars. I've also, I didn't show the example today, but I'm helping it build me a series of videos for YouTube marketing. I did one manually last year. Took 2 of us, a couple of days back and forth. I had ChatGPT write me 9 episodes in about 15 minutes.
Have you seen there's another, and I can try to get the link for you guys later, but there's a platform where you can record your video and your voice of you for about 10 minutes. And then it trains on it, and you can then just start feeding it actual text, and it'll record a video from that text. Wilfredo at Blackpoint Cyber showed me it, but he basically showed a work process where he took ChatGPT to generate the text, and then that bot to create the video, and he was able to make a video from one question to ChatGPT without any recording time, without any effort at all, all the way through to a finished video product. It's a little weird. It's not perfect, but it's an interesting way. But to your point, Neil, you can build that content that way.
I appreciate you guys for coming on today. I will ping you for a follow-up webinar. Everybody who's listening here, send questions to adam.walter or adam@virtualc.biz, adam@humanizeit.biz. Respond back to the email we sent you. We're going to send a link to the recorded webinar. Respond back to that email with what questions you want us to answer in part 2, and I will build up a second webinar and send it out to everybody maybe for early April or late March. We'll see when we have time.
Yeah, even if you have specific pain points in your business, like this is killing me, can ChatGPT help me?
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. All right, final plug, Matt.
I'm just happy to have everybody here. It's nice to see everybody. I don't have a plug, so.
All right, final plug, Neil.
They're great.
Great being here, sharing with you all. new exciting technology.
Definitely. Always a new shiny thing to get us excited. I'm Adam Walter with Humanize IT. We love doing this stuff. We love having great conversations. Check us out on the web, managedservicesplatform.com, Google Humanize IT, or just ask ChatGPT about us. Thanks, everyone.